For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ben Polge. I represent fully 1/3 of all the Bens employed by Twin Technologies. I also, as opposed to how positive Ben Lyons is for all of us, I am negative Ben. Yeah. I've been working for Twin for about 3 years now as a contractor for a year and a half before that. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is a concept that has been really, really important to me. Negative feedback. Actually, literally, I am standing up on this stage in front of you today because of negative feedback in my life. And it's my hope today that I can actually completely change the way that you guys view negative feedback and especially how you receive negative feedback. Oh, here's the slide thing. So, when most people think about feedback, they tend to think of it in these terms. They think of positive feedback as kisses and hugs and teddy bears and rainbows and unicorns. And when they think about negative feedback, they always think about the old lady with the ruler. I did too, and for quite a long time. In fact, I believed this right up until my very first full-time programming position, where I was completely blindsided after being let go. It's one of my favorite quotes. The job was fun. The work was exciting. All of my reviews were positive. We were creating software that changed things. I mean, it was a great, great job. Right up until the point where it wasn't. And see, I was let go with very little warning, and I spent a lot of time without work after that. And in the middle of all that, I vowed I would never let that happen again. Of course, the problem was I had no idea what had actually happened. So I don't know how you prevent something that you don't know what it is. So that put me in a quandary, and I had to figure out what exactly it was I was trying to prevent. And I remember, it was an odd thing, I was working in the sound booth at my church when all of a sudden the answer hit me. The problem was, I didn't know what was the problem. See, I had received lots of positive feedback at my job, but I had received very little negative feedback. And what I found is that, for me, it was the negative that was actually the more important. Now, admittedly, the way that I discovered this was odd. But if you'll allow me, I brought a lab coat today. And if you'll let me put this on for just a second, I believe I can actually take you through my thought process. See, like many of you guys, I have an engineering mindset. It's not that I don't like emotions. I'm actually quite fond of them. I'm just not very good at them. I also have a very difficult time quantifying them, and for me, that presents a severe problem, especially when they're very, very close to me. I tend to have to think of things in scientific principles and in natural phenomenon. This way it helps me to, kind of rise above the clouds, so to speak, so that I can get a clear view to be able to see the problem in such a way that I can explain it to myself. Oh, here, hold on. As Mike Rose says, safety third. So, since this is science time, I believe it's time for a demonstration. I'd like to show you all exactly what was the key to my path to self-discovery. This was the defining moment. If you would, please. I told you it was odd. What that was actually happening is actually called a feedback loop. Of course, these things are fogging up. That's where the sound from the speakers actually is going into the microphone, and then it's going back out the speakers and back into the microphone in a loop, and it goes around getting louder each time until eventually the sound system is completely maxed out. This is actually a good way to break your stuff. But what the sound guys back there are doing is making sure that that doesn't happen to you guys. What's interesting about this, or at least what I found very interesting about this, is that technically speaking, this is an instance of positive feedback. In other words, the signal grows every single time. Positive feedback. Well, that was interesting to me. Turns out this is not an isolated phenomenon at all. I'm from coastal Carolina, and late summer, early fall is hurricane season. And so around about that time of year, we always wonder exactly what's going to come our way out of the Atlantic Ocean. It tends to be a very fickle master, as Johnny can attest to. But what actually builds these storms, this is a lovely diagram from Weather Underground on the formation of a hurricane, but what builds these gigantic storms is actually based on exactly the same principle. It's the wind, the heat, the pressure, all combined together, amplifying themselves up until catastrophic results occur. Hurricanes work exactly the same way. Or tornadoes, excuse me. I found, it was at that moment that I discovered what had happened is that I was stuck in a positive feedback loop. Either through my bias in not being able to receive criticism, or through my employer's genuine efforts to correct my noise through positive feedback and positive reinforcement, all of my undesirable and unprofessional habits were amplified with each successful delivery. So, well, now I knew the what had happened. But unfortunately, that doesn't really actually lend a very good way towards coming to how to prevent it, but it does at least identify what it is. Well, all that led me to think about how noise-canceling headphones actually work. It's always been a curious subject to me. This is, how does these headphones know the difference between the music coming out of your iPod and the muzak coming from the loudspeakers? Well, actually, the way that this works is actually quite ingenious. Every noise-canceling headphone set has an external microphone on the outside of the earpiece. And what it does is it picks up the ambient sound around it, and it broadcasts the exact mirror image of the sound into the system itself, or into your ear. Now, this is the mirror image is actually called being 180 degrees out of phase. It was then I hit upon something. I didn't have one of those. I needed this external microphone. I needed something outside of me to tell me what was going wrong. Someone who could pick up my noise and push it back against me negatively, and then it hit me. This works off of negative feedback. When the sound goes up, the signal pushes it down. When the sound goes down, the signal pushes it back up. I actually was missing negative feedback, and I needed somebody around me who could provide that for me. So, I started looking around, as anyone could. But of course, my wife immediately volunteered for the job. She had an impressive resume. She had extensive knowledge of the subject matter and several years of experience in the field. This was a good hire. But I needed more. I needed someone in my professional environments to be able to provide these things back for me. This is really annoying. Hold on. So I needed to look for these external sensors. But my wife really had hit on a very key for me, is that I needed these people in my life who had deeply honest relationships with me. The kind of relationships that really only happen inside of families or in best friends. I needed more of that, people who weren't afraid of hurting my feelings. Now, this is important enough that I want to spend a little time on it, but we'll do that later. Meantime, I'm still looking for more people in a professional environment who could, do that for me, but Those are harder to find, so I started asking my current project leads, my managers, any team leads that were involved, any employers. I started asking them, not just how we were progressing, but what I'm not doing right. Also, interestingly enough, I instead of just trying to find new contacts and new opportunities, I started scouring through my old contacts, especially the ones who had said no, to ask them why. Why hadn't they chosen me at that time? Oddly enough, that's how I got my first contract here at Twin. I sent one of those emails to Ben. So, turns out though, what I was doing, asking people what you're doing wrong in a way that doesn't sound like you're whining, turned out to be a little bit harder than I had maybe bargained for. Here's some of the, going through that process for me, these are some of the things that come up. This isn't an exhaustive list, but this maybe help. Key number one, rule number one, really this has to happen, be upfront. If you're looking for negative feedback in your life so that you can find out what it is that you need to correct so that you can grow, you need to let people know that first. Correcting behavior after the fact, especially with people who have been trying to be nice to you, is much more difficult than just establishing up front that it's okay to be a jerk with me, that's fine, I need that. Also, I find that, using phrases like brutal honesty. Now, most people, when they think about people giving them brutal honesty, they immediately shirk back from this concept. Nobody really wants anyone to be brutally honest, as my relationship with my wife can attest to. But I have to let you know that this isn't as scary as it sounds. In our culture, we are so against giving people negative feedback, against potentially hurting someone else's feelings, that I find that if you're going to actually get any real feedback out of anybody, you have to use stuff like brutal honesty. You have to go all the way to the end of the line before you can even get them, get anything useful out of them. So, speak in terms of growing your career, about established expectations. And also, it's really important to use positive feedback to your advantage. Just, if anyone actually comes up and starts giving you the negative feedback, reinforce that. It's serious, because it's a rare thing. So let's come back real quick to that idea of brutal honesty. Now, I haven't been discussing the quotes. I just sort of wanted to sprinkle that on there, but I got to stop at this one for a second. I was scouring the internet for a quote from some famous person somewhere, hopefully inside of a cat picture, that would help support what I was trying to say, right? And like I said, this culture is so opposed to the concept of being completely open with people, again, for fear of hurting their feelings, that it took me 30 to 40 minutes searching on Google just to find one. And the only guy I could find was Winston Churchill. So just to point that out, that really this is not something any of us are really prone to doing on our own. So, I'm probably getting lost in my own thing here. All right. Brutal honesty is a concept that I came up with, just how I explain it to myself. Again, it is that concept of just being someone's friend. It's the idea that if, your best friend was going out into, outside and they had toilet paper stuck to their shoe, if you don't know somebody, you might not tell them, but if it's your best friend, you would. Even though it might embarrass them, you certainly don't want them to be more embarrassed. And this is what I'm kind of talking about. What I found for myself in doing this because I love to lie to myself all the time. I really do. It's just I always love to tell myself that I'm doing better than I am or that I'm doing worse than I am, which comes up a lot, like what Ben talked about with positivity. I mean, we lie to ourselves in both directions. So we need to be honest with ourselves first, especially if we're going to start being external censors for other people, which is just as important. But if we don't start here first, then we can't possibly be of any use to ourselves, be of use to the people who are giving us this negative feedback that we're asking for back, and we really don't start giving other people criticism before you have given yourself criticism. Go ahead, we'll do these together. These are actually really important too. We use a lot of euphemisms in our culture. You know, we put positive spins on everything. You know, someone isn't doing bad, they're not doing as well as they could. You know, we're not having a bad day, we're having a challenging day. This is just, you know, this is just what we do. But these euphemisms are hiding what's really going on. Not that we're trying to be deceptive about it, but we're just a culture that doesn't like negativity. So you have to be clear, and because you're giving negative feedback to people, you have to speak to them directly. Email is a horrendous medium for conveying emotion whatsoever. Anything negative on it comes out as a yell. I mean, it just is. It's just you sound like a jerk. Email's good at following up on what you've discussed, but speaking directly to the person, and I find that for me receiving it, I have to get into a hangout with somebody so they can see my face, so they can see, no, for real. I'm not afraid of you hurting my feelings. Just tell me what's going on. I need that. The other thing I want to point out too is that without this criticism, especially the criticism in your life, and people who are willing to be critical with you, or you being critical of others, you know, all of your praise becomes meaningless. There are people at my church who are the nicest people in the world. They have nothing bad to say about anybody. I don't ask them if I'm doing something right or wrong because I don't trust their opinion because they're never going to tell me if I'm doing it wrong. So, without this necessary criticism in your life, you can't really give people praise. You need this part of it. Also want to point out that 180 degrees out of phase does not involve amplification. You're giving the exact opposite signal back. You're not giving something louder, you're not giving something softer. This is important when you're doing this with yourself. If it's a little failure, provide a little bit of correction. If it's a big success, emphasize that a lot. If it's a big failure, then yeah, you need to really kind of be tough on it. But if it's this, don't make a gigantic deal out of it. You need negative feedback is the process of correction, not the process of beating someone to death with a ruler. And this needs to be done early. Had this been done in my job 2 months in, I would not have gotten into that problem. I would have clearly realized that, okay, there's more to this programming thing than just code, apparently. And this is honestly where Twin has been just a huge help to me, is that there have been many, many people, some of them in this room, who have been willing to tell me that I suck on a couple of things and that they have been truly honest enough. Well, and it's not even really honest enough. It's caring enough about me to want me to succeed and getting me to see where my failings lied. And they didn't wait until way after I'd screwed up something horrendously. They waited, as soon as they started seeing it, they said, well, hey, maybe you need to work on this. It was 180 degrees out of phase. It was great. Now, I do want to mention one thing. Like I said, with brutal honesty, you have to tell people that you want them to be brutally honest with you because they're not going to be. However, there are cases where you will find somebody who is actually brutally honest with you. These people you need to grab onto with both hands and both feet. They are rare commodities in this world. My wife is wonderful in this. I've never once questioned her praise of me. Never once. Because she's never once told me she liked something when she didn't. Although I wish that she would do that maybe more often. But I'm glad that but now, especially that I've been through this process, I'm really glad that she doesn't. Yeah, it hurts to hear that something was bad, especially when you thought it was good. But when it becomes good, you know it. Now, as I said, these people are rare. And, they were even talking about this 3,000 years ago. These kind of people are rare. They're gold adornments. You need to find these people in your life, anywhere you find it. Someone who is willing to be honest, to give you criticism. If you find someone like that, immediately start developing a relationship with them. It will be the best thing for you, best thing for your career. Now, I had some feedback earlier from this that perhaps maybe people would like to know where to find these sort of people. And the answer is, I actually have no idea. They show up in the oddest of places. They really do. You could just be walking down the street one day and run into a guy in the park and he's like this. And really, if you find someone like that and you don't even know him, get to know them. These are the kind of people who are going to be external microphones and cancel your noise. But, okay, so I gave it some thought. Where you're going to statistically increase your chances of maybe finding one of these. But again, they're rare in each cases. Family members, especially spouses. Well, okay, mostly spouses are always honest with you. So that's probably the first place to look. And it's also a good place to get practice on receiving criticism that hurts. Mentoring programs at work, we have some really good ones here at Twin with some really great guys who are really care enough about the people that they're working with to, give them a leg up. Older people within the fields or within the company, especially what you're looking for is the guy that everybody really, really, really respects, but everybody is afraid of. There are one or two at Twin, and out of respect for them, I won't mention their names, especially since they're not here because they're up in Chicago and they had a baby. Your project leaves, this is hit or miss, but really you need to be hitting these guys anyway because you need to find out where you're not meeting expectations, where you're, what point you're going, where you are in the project. I do this a lot. Most of the people who work with me know that hopefully I don't sound too whiny when I ask this, but I always do make sure to ask this. People from other cultures are a good place to work too. Like I said, as a culture, we're opposed to negativity. We're all about being positive and nice and happy and, My Little Pony. Other cultures are not, especially, and so sometimes it's easier to find maybe somebody outside of America to find this for you. For me, I found pastors are a wonderful resource for these sort of things. They're kind of paid to be honest with people. That's, like their job, kind of. Not all of them are as good as others, but, if you're not involved in a church, then they're always happy to receive guests. Anyway, so that's another, good place to find it. But once again, these people are all incredibly rare individuals, and whenever you find them, latch onto them. So that's negative feedback. Thanks, guys.